So what is he telling you you need to use as your main tool or weapon against suffering? Your mind. He says, arm yourselves also with the same mind. All right? I hate to say it's all in your head, but the solution is, okay? I'm not saying this is all psychosomatic and you don't really have real suffering and it's all in your head, but the solution is actually between your ears, okay? And it's the mind of Messiah that is the solution. You know, in Philippians 2:5, quote that all the time, it says, let this mind be in you that was also in Messiah Yeshua. Okay, so we have that reference. He says, since Messiah suffered and had a mindset that was used as part of his not sinning and dealing with suffering, he says, you also, because he who suffered in the flesh ceases from sin, because that's the purpose of suffering in the flesh, is to get you to the place where you cease from sin. So don't read it as a concluded act, okay? You're suffering. Anybody suffering in their flesh? Anybody still sinning? All of us, okay? So it's not like because you suffer in the flesh, your sinning stops. He's telling you that when you add in the mind of Messiah, in dealing with your suffering, which also the mind of Messiah understands what the point of the suffering is, what the purpose is. There's a lot more to the discussion that the mind of Messiah understands that you need to understand too. We have this in teachings like the baptism of fire teaching, which talks about the sufferings and things that we call trials like fire. And we're gonna actually read verses in here to talk about that. What does a hard heart look like? We talk about it even with Pharaoh. It's the strengthening in it, the idea of it being strong in the way it wants to go. It already has a way it wants to go. What way is that? The flesh. You were born in the flesh. You dwell in a world that's flesh. And so, of course, your mindset is likely to be flesh. And so that is the strengthening or the hardening of that heart. I want to keep doing what I understand, know, and have been doing. I like some of what I've been doing. I mean, look, if all of the fleshly things had no pleasure attached to them, you would never do them. So let's be honest, some of the things that you used to do that you shouldn't do had a certain level of enjoyment in them. You got something out of it, or you would not ever do it. There's many things in your life that you did, got nothing out of, and stopped doing immediately. You did it once, said, that didn't do anything for me, and you didn't do it. So there must be something you were getting out of it. We're trying to be honest with ourselves here, right? Part of what this ministry tries to do with people is help you to be honest with yourself. He says, but you need to put off that old man, because that old man was corrupted according to the desires of the flesh, not the above desires. It was corrupt. By corrupted, what does corrupted mean? Like, let's say you take a piece of equipment that's metal, and then it gets corrupted, meaning it gets all rusted and starts getting damaged. It's corrupted. Or if you have a hard drive on your computer and it gets corrupted, what happens? It doesn't work right anymore. So by corrupted, it has a lot to do with you don't function properly anymore. You no longer function as the manufacturer designed you. There's a corruption that's in there. I don't want you to think of corruption just as like, you picture, business people or politicians, taking payments under the table or being that kind of corruption or organized crime corruption. Corruption simply means that whatever was designed no longer functions as designed. It says, and the works of the flesh, when we talk about flesh, and we talk about spirit, when we talk about the above and below, we talk about all these things, we're not talking about that the physical thing, flesh, is doing anything. It's animated by the mind. So it says the works of the flesh, it's saying the works of the mindset of the flesh. The mind of the flesh. Remember I told you we're doing a lot of inner being work, because that's your problem, okay? Your outside body isn't just doing whatever it wants and running amok. Your mind is the problem. Okay, your body doesn't do anything that your mind doesn't have control over. Okay, we're not newborns where our arms are just flopping around and we don't even have any control over them, right? You do because you think first. The heart is the part that's suffering. So the mind has to come in and bring the solution or understanding of what the suffering's purpose is. Then you can handle the suffering better. So you guys need to, if you did your Myers-Briggs and you're driving with an F for feelings, you need to get that thinking process, whether it's your inferior or your tertiary or whatever you want to call it, your 10-year-old, your 3-year-old, whatever, then they need to get more mature so you get them more active to deal with your feelings problem. These are your evaluative functions, okay, how you evaluate information. If you evaluate it through feelings and don't evaluate enough through thinking, you're gonna have a problem. That's what he's saying. You've got to evaluate the information through a mind process. That doesn't mean the feelings process is completely useless, but it has to have some sort of a balancing by the mind process or you're gonna end up in a ditch. For this reason, the good news was also brought to those who are dead, so that whereas they are judged according to men in the flesh, they might live according to Elohim in the spirit, in the intrinsic nature of Elohim. Oh, so this good news was also brought to those who were dead. What is the standard teaching on this? Somehow, Yeshua went into the graves to people that are actually dead and taught them so that their judgment, even though they've already done everything they did, is altered in some way or something. Can we not understand when we look at Ephesians, okay, chapter 2, it says you were dead in your trespasses? Well, were you actually dead? You know, Paul and the other apostles love to use this metaphor of being dead as being not made alive with Messiah, not as in physically your heart stopped and you're now in the ground. Can we agree? Above all, have fervent love for one another because love covers a great number of sins. So now he's saying, as you're going through this process, as you're struggling with all these things, we're gonna have to have a lot of love for each other because it's gonna be tough. Some of us are gonna be a little bit more flesh than we might like at the time, or we might be a little bit more flesh and have trouble with them because our flesh is in the way. But flesh is gonna get in the way. Most of the people that have issues in this group or any other group, it's always because the flesh reared its head in one way or the other. And it could be the flesh of you just not being mature enough to handle whatever's happening. You might not be doing anything overtly, but your flesh isn't handling because it doesn't have the maturity of the above to handle this fleshly nonsense that you're stuck in for right now. Because remember, when Messiah prayed, he said, I don't pray that you take them out of this stuff. I just want you to keep them from it. In other words, they're in, but not of. His prayer was always that you be in this, because this is how you grow. He never wanted you to be taken out of it. How would you grow? Welcome one another without grumbling. Part of the problem in this group and every group is there's a certain level of grumbling going on. Whining, complaining, grumbling, critical, whatever. It's the wrong mindset. The mind is wrong. But where's the grumbling coming from? An emotional problem. Okay, it's how you felt about something. It's not the something. If you're purely thinking about it, you identify that happened. That's a thought, it happened. And then you automatically shift to, and how do I feel about what happened? Okay, now we can have a problem. If the mind doesn't jump back in and say, hold on, calm down, let's choose the feeling that we should have for this more logically, more reasonably, more rationally, instead of being triggered. Abraham, now we can go all the way back to Adam, but Paul's quoting that Abraham certainly had the good news, and we read verses all the way back to that. And then we connect that all the way forward to Revelation 14. And it's talking about this messenger holding the everlasting good news to announce to those dwelling on the earth. In other words, there's an additional piece or some pieces that have already been shared before of this positive forward-looking message that was being shared with those below. So this good news that's being shared, or the aspect of it in Revelation 14, may not be exactly the same stuff that's already been said, because it's a positive forward-looking message for those people at that time. Like the aspect that was shared with Abraham had to do with them being a blessing to all nations who believe. I mean, that's not all of the good news message, but that is a positive forward-looking piece of it that was shared with Abraham, and a positive forward-looking piece that apparently is being shared in the Revelation 14 times during the end of end time events.